an accent yelling at me over twirling blades. My responsibilities were pretty simple. As Roz flew over the tri-state area, she reported back to me when there were accidents. For example, if she hovered over the Grand Central Parkway and saw a tractor-trailer stalled in the left lane at Francis Lewis Boulevard, she'd radio to me over the two-way. Got a tractor-trailer stopped in the GCP at Frankie Lewis. At the time, each mile-long stretch of highway in the New York area was patrolled by different towing companies, and I had a list of all of them as well as the area they controlled hanging on the wall of my cubicle. When Roz told me of a breakdown, I called the tow truck company responsible for that part of the road to let the drivers know something needed clearing. I wasn't just being a good Samaritan. Once Roz flew over the Grand Central Parkway, she was on to other spots in Staten Island, then New Jersey, and into Manhattan. It was going to be 45 minutes before she got back to that scene, but we had traffic reports every 10 minutes. It was my job to let her know if the accident had been cleared, and the only way to know for sure was by keeping in touch with the towing companies. Problem was, towing companies aren't exactly known for customer service. Depending on the day and who picked up the phone, getting an answer was a crapshoot. Some days they told me, yeah, we got that one. Then I'd find out a few minutes later, usually at the next traffic report, they hadn't. Other times they just said to me, fuck off, we're busy. Occasionally I'd get a sympathetic ear and they'd give me the real scoop. Not that it mattered. Roz was a petite woman with curly black hair and huge round glasses, but her voice could boom like thunder. She used it practically every time I gave her a report. That's just the way she was, even though I worked hard to connect with her. A week after I started, she asked me to go in the helicopter with her so I could see what she was seeing and have a different perspective on the job. It was a good idea. Who doesn't want to go on a chopper ride? The helicopter cab was as small as a roller coaster car. The radio between the two seats had to be removed so I'd have some place to sit. It was a gorgeous spring day, and I bought a camera to take pictures. Roz asked the pilot to fly near the Statue of Liberty, which was covered in scaffolding. We flew so close, I thought we were going to hit it. Not once during the flight did Roz yell at me. And it did help me do my job better. But I thought that after some good one-on-one time, we would have bonded. Not happening. Never happened. It was strange because one of the things a lifetime spent with my mom taught me was how to handle volatile personalities. It made me someone who understands people. It's a valuable skill. At the time, it might have been my only skill. But Roz wasn't swayed by my charm. And at times, she was just plain unreasonable. Once, she was doing the 640 update, and after she was off the air, I jumped on the two-way to give her some accident reports, giving her plenty of time to put it all together. I pushed the radio button and said, Roz? Then there was silence. So I pushed it again a couple of seconds later and said, Roz? Nothing. I tried one more time. Finally, she screamed in her southern accent, Stop calling my name! I'm not deaf! I can hear you perfectly fine. If I don't respond right away, just wait before calling me again because I'm getting ready for a report. But the next report was 10 freaking minutes away. After that, whenever I called her, I had to time it. Roz? Then I'd wait a full minute before saying it again if she didn't respond. Roz? I waited. That was fine if we had plenty of time between traffic updates, but sometimes info came in late between our segments, and I had to get it to her right away. We'd have a minute before she went back on the air, and I'd have vital accident updates that the listeners of WNBC needed to hear so they could get to work on time. This was traffic, goddammit. I'd hit the two-way. Roz? Nothing. So now I had to ask myself, do I risk getting yelled at by Roz for asking her to respond before enough time has elapsed? Or do I risk not getting her the accurate information so she sounds like she's with it on the air? It was like Sophie's choice. Usually I'd let her do the report, and then she'd yell at me because she didn't have what she needed. Gary, I want to tell you right now that there is an accident on the GCP and I asked for this info and I have none of it. It was a difficult position, but I didn't want to fuck it up. I soon realized why my interview with Meredith was so weird. She was asking me all these questions about how I handled myself when getting screamed at because Roz was always screaming. Eventually, I learned that the two people at the job before me were women who'd left the building in tears. But this was the other benefit of growing up in my house. If I couldn't get Roz to chill, at least I knew enough about ignoring yellers to turn my back and do my job. Still, I couldn't stand her. She was a big star at the station and had this patter with Imus whenever she went on the air. He'd say something clever about traffic and she'd say, Oh, Imus, you're so funny. He'd follow that with, Roz, you're crazy. It was so phony because as soon as she snapped the microphone off, she got back on the two-way and started yelling at me. Her tirade started getting out of control. Shadow Traffic had volunteers all over the area who called in with reports. These were just people with two-way radios who figured out our frequency and tapped into it. There was a guy with a thick Jamaican accent who loved to check it every day, whether there was an accident or not. All right, man, I'm on the GCP passing Frankie Lewis. All clear, man. Out. I think he just liked saying the code words. One day I was at my desk and Imus's producer told me I had a call on line 3. My first thought was, how did Mom get this number? I hadn't given it out to anyone. I was done with work before most people knew I woke up. Besides, I didn't even have a phone at my desk. Then I freaked, worried that maybe something had happened to her, that she was having an episode or had been hurt. This all came to me in a flash, just a few seconds. I picked up the receiver. A man said, Gary? Yeah, I said. Why do you let that bitch talk to you like that? Who is this, I asked. You don't know me, he said, but why do you let that bitch talk to you like that? Who, I asked. I had no idea who this was. Roz, he answered. I hear her screaming at you every morning and it's fucking ridiculous. Then he hung up. I realized he was one of those random guys listening on the two-way radio, and he was right. One morning after she finished yelling at me over the two-way radio, I just started muttering under my breath, fuck you, bitch, I can't stand you. I gave the two-way radio the finger. Then I turned around and standing behind me was Imus. He just started cracking up. I don't think he ever said a word to her about it. It got so bad with Roz that it reminded me when I was in grammar school, I'd come home with knots in my stomach, unsure of the mom I'd get when I walked through the door. Was it the yeller? The woman who was depressed? The one who was buzzing? I didn't know which Roz was getting onto the helicopter each day. I ended my shift thinking, a day not getting yelled at by Roz is a good day. The best part about my job was that I worked at WNBC. I had my fucking ID, and when I strolled to my desk, I passed the bulletin board with all the job listings at the station. I began to live for those listings. Once you were in the door, you had the inside track on all the open gigs. Being the traffic boy wasn't what I was meant to do with my life.
Chapter 18. Piloting the N-Car.
There were a lot of fresh-faced college grads working at WNBC in the 80s. We all thought we were too hip for the place, but we loved radio and couldn't believe that we were working at a 50,000-watt station. In a lot of ways, it was just like the record store. We all became friends. I met my future roommate, Greg, there. He was a quiet, red-headed kid who worked in the engineering department. He had a high voice and later became a regular on the Stern Show at NBC, filling in when our usual engineer would go on vacation. We lived together for 4 years and we're still great friends. My buddy Bernard, a promotions intern who eventually became Imus's producer, married the hot chick from accounting. We hung out at night and shared a house in the Hamptons for a couple of summers. It didn't matter that we weren't getting paid shit. My 15 hours barely covered the cost of my monthly pass on the Long Island Railroad. I still humped it back on the 9:15 a.m. most days to go to work at the kennel supply store. I even kept that crappy overnight shift